Casey Rankin is a name unknown to most Americans. A musician and a successful one, you won't see him on TV or hear his songs on the radio. He's responsible for a handful of songs remembered and recited in popular culture, and yet his name is unfamiliar to so many. Despite his extensive library of songs and decades of credits and awards to his name, the man doesn't even have an English-language Wikipedia page. This is because despite his all-American upbringing and his tours and performances throughout New York and California, Casey Rankin's contributions in television and film weren't in America, but rather in an island country 5,000 miles away. An island country that would reignite the passion of a tired man, and where a former Marine would finally discover peace.
Get up in the morning at the cracking of dawn. You hustle and you hassle away. The things that a man has to do for a living, just to keep the reaper away. Pick up your head, throw away your blues. Where are you going? When are you coming home? Where are you going? When are you coming home?
Check it out, eh? Live alone, leather legs, get in place. What do you get? Say, back in, zoom room, cosmic zoom. That's up there, it's sonic boom.
Casey Rankin was born in the state of Kansas on July 10th, 1946. His father a trumpet player and his mother a pianist, music was always a part of Casey's life. It didn't take long for Casey to pick up an instrument for himself, when at age 7 he started receiving piano lessons from his mother. Piano was his entryway into the world of music, but Casey would soon discover his true love, the acoustic guitar. While still a boy, his family moved from Kansas to New York City. It was there, at age 16, when Casey began recording his own music at a studio in Manhattan. In 1963, at age 17, Casey enlisted in the Marines, and just 2 years later, he was deployed to Vietnam. There, he served as a helicopter crew member, where he took part in Operation Rolling Thunder. Casey was exposed to the greatest atrocities in the war, and recounted witnessing men from both sides retrieving bodies from the battlefield. The war exposed Casey to the darkest part of humanity, but it also gave him a way to cope, because it was in Vietnam that Casey discovered Buddhism, a religion he would quickly adopt as his own. By 1967, Casey had left the Marines and moved back to New York City. There, he worked as a songwriter and studio bassist for, of all places, Buddha Records. During this time, Casey performed with groups like The Guess Who, Melanie, and Vanilla Fudge. He also assisted in the recording of Plastic People by the experimental rock group The Mothers of Invention, who were staying in New York at the time due to a theater contract. In 1969, Casey's son Eric was born, and it was around this time that Casey felt he needed a change of scenery. Despite sharing many of the sentiments of his contemporary artist who sang songs promoting peace and love towards their fellow man, Casey hated the wild rock and roll lifestyle, and was especially displeased with the excessive drug use within the industry. Casey described it as madness, and after several tours throughout the 60s, he felt that things had gotten out of hand. He spoke of wanting to start over again, and considered leaving music behind to get what he called a real job. Luckily, Casey was offered a way out by Capitol Records, who offered him a contract that would allow him to move from New York to California. Casey felt a new start in the Golden State miles away from the craziness of New York would rejuvenate his passion, and a year later in 1970, he relocated to the West Coast. Casey was convinced the sunshine and scenic beaches of Southern California would prove a healthy change. Unfortunately, Casey soon realized that the drug-fueled rock and roll lifestyle that drove him from New York was just as prevalent in California, if not more so. I thought it would be healthier, but it was the same thing. Only difference was the junkies played volleyball and had nice tans, Casey remembered. Casey's passion for music and songwriting dwindled, but in 1971, Casey made one last attempt to free himself from the frustration of the industry. Casey arranged a sabbatical visit to the Sojiji Buddhist temple in Yokohama, Japan. Once there, he enrolled in a one-year intensive Zen program, which, according to Casey, paid off every day of his life. This experience persuaded Casey to permanently relocate to Japan, where he soon returned to songwriting and recording music. For his first few years in the country, Casey worked for a trading company by day while playing music in Japanese clubs by night. Living in the country as a foreigner, Casey's first big musical venture was alongside 3 American musicians living on an American military base. In 1976, their band Short Hope released their first album under the Kitty Records label, making them the first band in Japan with no Japanese members to have their music distributed domestically. 3 years later, a Japanese band known as One Line Band was selected to compose the music for a Japanese television drama titled Oretachi wa Tenshida, or We Are Angels. Nippon television music producer Noriko Aida brought Casey onto the project to sing and compose the main theme for the series. Before the premiere, the band was renamed Shogun to promote sales of records overseas. The executives at Nippon Music felt that it was a great fit, as it was a Japanese word that was also recognizable in the West, due to James Clavell's popular 1975 novel Shogun, which the producers said they would always see at American airports. Casey composed the theme and sang the vocals, much to the distaste of guitarist Yoshino Fujimura. Fujimura hated the track due to its American country sound, but to his surprise, the song became a hit, selling over 500,000 copies when it was released as a single in 1979. That same year, Nippon Television had Shogun write and perform the soundtrack for The Age of the Great Dinosaur, an animated TV special written and directed by Shotaro Ishinomori. The special aired on a Sunday night in the time slot right before We Are Angels, giving Shogun a strong sense of presence on the network. A year later, Shogun would compose the theme song to another Japanese drama, Tantei Monogatari, or Detective Story.
Bad city, bad city.
It was with Detective Story that Shogun's unique approach to theme songs began to spark a trend in Japanese television. In the 60s and 70s, TV theme songs were closer in composition and style to commercial jingles. But Shogun was writing music in their own style, modern rock. This made the tracks even more popular, increasing record sales, and even getting the song's radio play, which served as additional promotion for the TV shows. The series was a hit and maintains a devoted following even to this day. Detective Story's main character, Shunsaku Kudo, is even cited as the key inspiration for Cowboy Bebop's Spike Spiegel. When asked how he felt about Detective Story's theme Bad City, Fujimura simply stated that he didn't have an opinion on it because the lyrics were in English, and since he doesn't understand English, he really can't judge it. Less than 2 years after forming, and despite rising popularity, Shogun was forced to disband in 1981 after Fujimura and keyboardist Kazuo Otani were found in possession of marijuana. Despite Shogun's sudden separation, Casey continued to write and perform music for TV, anime, and commercials. He was also doing live shows with his new band, Casey Rankin and the Rumor. He even worked as a DJ at Hiroshima FM. But most importantly, it was around this time when Casey was hired to write the English lyrics to the song Dragon Ninja, the theme song to the film The Legend of the Ninja.
Listen to me, children, and I tell you of the legend of the ninja. There were men of the night who move in the night and share their life. They was ready to fight. Shaka Ninja.
In 1983, Casey wrote and performed the opening and ending theme to the anime The Super Dimension Century Orguss. Orguss was the second Super Dimension series, following the Super Dimension Fortress Macross, which was a massive hit. Unfortunately, Orguss drastically underperformed. Despite that, Casey's opening, Sky Hurricane, is often regarded as one of the most notable aspects of the show, and within the mecha anime community, you'll hear the song come up on a lot of people's lists of favorite openings. A year later, Casey would compose the opening for Rampu, the Flying Warped Boy, an obscure gag comedy series from 1984. Unlike with Orguss, where its opening was its greatest asset, Rampu simply flew under the radar, and the song never appeared on any of Casey's albums or discographies because he only composed the song and didn't actually sing it.
I want you, 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 I want you.
In 1985, Shogun re-emerged, but in place of Otani and Fujimura were Miura Koji and Mike Dunn, a former bandmate of Casey's from Short Hope. This iteration of Shogun released a single album titled Just Us, but it was poorly received. After Just Us, Shogun once again disbanded, and Casey's name seemed to vanish into obscurity. For the rest of the 80s and 90s, Casey continued writing and performing music, as well as traveling for live performances overseas. In 1993, Casey wrote and performed the songs Sonic, You Can Do Anything, and Cosmic Eternity, Believe in Yourself, for the game Sonic the Hedgehog CD. Unfortunately, despite having almost entirely English lyrics, the songs were removed for the North American release of the game.
Cosmic Zoom, SMJ, and Sonic Boom. Without your love, I won't get far. So I sell my soul, I'll even sell my guitar.
In 1997, Shogun reunited with Yoshino Fujimura on guitar and Kazuo Otani on keyboard. The only change from the original lineup was that the drummer Hideo Yamaki was replaced with Casey's son Eric, now a professional musician himself, going under the name Eric Zay. Around that time, a Japanese coffee brand would make a commercial parodying Detective Story, revitalizing public interest in Shogun.
自由でいたいんだよ。人間ってのはさ、なんかこう冗談か本気わかんないギリギリのとこで生きてんじゃないのかしら。求めていた味、缶コーヒージャック、札幌から新登場。ちょっとコーヒー飲んでくから。
But just like in the 80s, Shogun once again disbanded at their peak. In 1999, Casey founded his own record label, Pure Records, which he used to continue distributing his own music while also helping promote other foreigners looking to establish themselves in Japan. On New Year's Day 2004, Casey was celebrating Hatsumode with his family, a Japanese custom where a family visits a Shinto or Buddhist shrine at the start of the new year. It was here that Casey took a bite of soba, only to realize that he couldn't swallow it. Not wanting to worry his family, Casey went to the restroom to spit it out. Despite this troubling warning sign, Casey was slow to react to this issue. Casey said, if you're a musician, you're not feeling well all year round, and you're used to putting up with it. It wasn't until June of that year, when Casey heard someone explain the symptoms of esophageal cancer, that he rushed to the doctor, requesting an immediate endoscopy. A detailed examination found a 15-centimeter lesion in his esophagus, caused by a large tumor. At this point, the cancer had already spread to his stomach and lymph nodes. Casey was given a combination of endovascular treatment and chemotherapy, and only 3 months later he returned to performing live shows. For a short time, it seemed that the cancer had subsided, but in March of 2006 it returned, leading to further treatment. Casey Rankin passed away on January 2nd, 2009. Though Casey may have passed, his memory is kept alive through his record label, which still works to introduce foreign artists into the industry, his son Eric, who still plays and composes music to this day, and a devoted following who have created a Facebook group that archives all of Casey's music, performances, TV appearances, and more.
今度はね、believe。believe。I believe。これ believe っていうのはね、信じや。I believe in you。これはあなたを信じています。あなたに。
What more can I say? That I believe in you. Oh, yes, I do. Chase my blues away. Now listen. The saints and pharaohs